Okay, for this video, we're going to handle this a little bit more in depth. The way you would normally remove a switch and replace it is you're going to heat the solder up, you're going to suck the old solder off of the board and off of the switch with one of two different methods. This is a solder sucker. You can pick these up at Radio Shack, several different places, under $10. What it does, you depress the plunger and it locks. And then when you put this down on the liquid solder, you press the button and you can hear it pop. What this does is it just sucks the solder up while it's still liquid. I'll show you how to do that in a second. The other kind you can get is this. This basically is a soldering iron and a bulb for suction. This type is a little bit more commonly seen. Basically what you do here is you plug this in, you let it get good and hot, and what I mean by good and hot for either soldering iron, the normal type or one of these, is you should be able to touch this to the solder and it should immediately or within a second or two liquefy. If you're having to put the tip down and roll it around or press or anything like that, it's not hot enough. Leave it run a little longer. 2-3 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes, depending on the iron. Let it get good and hot. It just makes it easier for your whole process to go through. The way this one works is you let this get up full heat. You set this right over top of the pin. As an example, and I'll just show you on one of these, you would just set it right on top of this, squeeze the bulb beforehand, set it all the way on. When you notice the solder's liquefied, you just release the bulb. It'll suck the solder right up inside, it'll stay up in here and stay melted. And just do it for both sides, and then you just pull the switch right off. This one, I don't have that thing heated up yet, or any place to set it, so we'll do it with this type instead on this one. And this, if you let your solder cool back down, you're not going to be able to get it up off of the switch, because this only works when the solder is liquid. You set it on here, you let it get good and melted, and then you quickly, or quickly as you can, set that on, and then it sucks the solder right off. Depress it again, and you may notice little flecks of metal come out of this when you press it. As an example like this, you can see that. This cools off almost instantly. So if you notice this laying, you can touch it, it's not going to burn you. When it's liquid, then you don't want to touch it. We'll touch the other side. Get this up here to where it'll sit still. Touch the other side, get it good and liquid and melted, and suck that up in. I may have missed on that one. Hang on just a second. Get in here real good. There we go. And you clear the old out. Set this up in here. And then there's still a little bit on there, but not enough to give you a problem. Then you just pull your other switch off. Now, you'll notice on these, I did this one a second ago, and this one now, you'll notice you see actual holes here. That's what a solder sucker will do. It'll pull the extra solder off here, and these holes won't close up. That way, when you go to put your switch on, you can take your switch, set it in position, the metal prongs will stick through the holes, the plastic prongs will stick through the holes, and everything will be honky-dory. You won't have any problems, you won't have to keep pressure on the switch or anything. It'll sit completely flat and flush, and that's all you have to worry about. Get it turned around and set down somewhere to where you're comfortable with it. Sometimes it even helps if you've got somebody who can give you a hand on a job like this. I don't at the moment, because the person who's doing my helping hands is holding the camera. Let's see, let's get this in a position here. Just any old which way. And grab a little solder. Now, the way you normally want to solder is you want to take the tip of the iron, you want to touch the base on the board and also the metal prong, and then bring the solder down to those 2 points. Some people will try and do it like this. Melt a bunch of solder onto the iron and then bring it down to the point. You can do that, but it's really not the best way to go. This isn't a sensitive piece of electronics. You're not going to do any damage if you do that, but it's really not the best way to go about it. The rosin that's in the solder, the smoke that you saw come off of this when I touched it to it, that was the rosin burning up. Basically, to solder this back on, you would just touch with the method I showed you a second ago, let it heat up. Once the board gets warm enough and the pin gets warm enough, the solder will automatically transfer and stick. Now in this case, we want to go about this a little bit differently. We'll try and do it the proper way if I can get this board to sit still for me. You bring it in. Touch it, and then you'll get a good seat and a good cap. And what I mean by a good cap, that should look almost like a little pyramid sitting on top of the switch. You're going to have your metal contacts sticking up through. You should have good adhesion to the board, and it should also be stuck to that to the contact. And what will happen is it'll all be connected. If you see a ring where it's not touching, you're not making contact. You didn't get a good seal with the solder, and that's probably not going to hold, and it's not going to work or last. This one I've already got some solder on the tip of the iron, so we'll just kind of do a quick touch on here to get that set up, and that's it. This is done. That's all there is to it. If this was made like this point, where the wire comes in and you have 3 points really close together, you could have a problem. You would have to make a very precise solder connection without the solder touching any of those other points. That would create a short, and that would cause you a serious problem. These are so far apart that if you've got enough solder on here to bridge this gap, you don't even need to be playing the game, let alone trying to solder. I don't even know how anybody could get that much solder on a board this size. So you're not apt to do any damage here. The easiest way to make sure you've got everything set and good to go is to just, once you get your switches on, bring your guitar body over. If you want to verify your work, plug this back on, turn it on, start the game, and then just basically press your switches. Make sure they go up and down, and then you know you're good to go. If that's all doing like it should, just set this back in position, get it screwed down, and you're done. Screw this down, slide that back in, run your screws, and you're finished with the job. That's it. That's all there is to it. I'm going to do one more video. This video I actually hadn't planned on doing from the beginning, but I will go ahead and shoot. Some people want a strum bar that moves as small of an amount as possible. The reason for that is, if you have to do alt strumming really quickly, or any other kind of strumming, the farther you have to move that bar, the harder it is to set up a good rhythm. What you would really need, and what would be best, is if you could just move the bar just the smallest amount possible to be able to do your up and down strum, and there would be no wasted energy as far as your hand goes, and it would immediately trigger the switches. What we'll do is show how to do that on one of these types of setups. This is not something that most people are going to want to do. Out of 50 people who have commented on these guitars and used them, I think I've seen maybe one who would prefer to have a shorter throw on this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, show how it can be done pretty easily in one more video. But as far as most people are concerned, all they're going to want to do is change their switches out. And that'll quiet the click down, and then this is as close to the perfect guitar controller as you could possibly get. And we'll show how to do that in another video and get that posted as soon as I can.